to have more on the court decision overturning Bill Cosby's sexual assault conviction. We'll have some legal help to break down what happened and why when we come back. All right, back to a story that we've been talking about all morning. Bill Cosby, the first high-profile person convicted during the rise of the Me Too movement, is now out of jail. Pennsylvania's Supreme Court on Wednesday overturned Cosby's 2018 sexual assault conviction. The High Court ruled an agreement with a previous prosecutor prevented him from being charged with any crime. There's a lot to unpack and a lot to understand, so we called on a professional who knows. This is attorney Vince Finaldi. He's a sexual abuse lawyer who has tried multiple sexual assault cases. Vince, thanks for hopping on with us today. Why don't you do this? We understand there were sort of some procedural technicality things going on here. As best you can, lay it out in layman's terms why the conviction was reversed and why he can't be tried again on these charges.
No problem. So in 2005, the district attorney Castor determined that there was not enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Bill Cosby had done what he is alleged to have done to Andrea Constant. So he said that, you know, the best thing that she could do is pursue a civil case. And he made a public statement that Bill Cosby would not be prosecuted. Because he made that public statement, the thought was that if he was sued in a civil court, Bill Cosby could not assert the Fifth Amendment privilege and he would have to testify. So he did that in the civil case. Later on, a new district attorney got a hold of the transcripts from that civil case and decided to prosecute him. And so the Supreme Court was to decide the decision of whether that was a violation of Bill Cosby's constitutional rights or not. So the Supreme Court came back and said, look, Bill Cosby never would have testified in a civil case had he not had the representation from the district attorney that he wouldn't be prosecuted. That's the reason why he didn't assert the Fifth, and he was actually forced to testify by the court. Because of that, that information cannot be used in any criminal prosecution. It's fruit of the poisonous tree. And because it was used in the criminal case against him, the whole procedure was flawed. He must be released, and he can't be prosecuted again because that information taints the entire process.
So why couldn't the court have ruled that the verdict was overturned, but that Cosby could be retried in the case just without using the testimony from his depositions?
So it's important to note that he was found guilty, and this is not a proclamation that he's innocent. The reason why the court came back and said that they can't retry him is because the evidence that was taken from the civil case was used, it was disseminated, and it was spread throughout the case. And for that reason, it would deprive Mr. Cosby of his constitutional rights because it pervaded so much of the case. It can't be unwound. That bell can't be unrung, and that's the reason why.
You made that point at the very outset of that answer. And that's an important thing to somebody like you that's in this struggle. Why? That he is guilty, that it's not that he has now been proclaimed innocent.
Well, it's important because the first thing that Mr. Cosby and his team went out and did is they said that he's been railroaded and this is a travesty of justice and he's innocent. That's not what the Supreme Court said. The Supreme Court did not address that issue. And as we all know, the jury did find him guilty. He also paid Andrea Constant over $3 million in the civil suit, which is very indicative of, you know, people usually don't do that if they haven't done anything. Innocent.
Look, you have, the reason we called you is because you're a guy that has been working in this space for a long time. You have an extensive background in sexual abuse cases, including Dr. Larry Nassar. Talk and help us understand, help our viewers understand why getting convictions in these kinds of cases, in sexual abuse and sexual assault cases, is so dang difficult.
You know, it's so difficult because usually there's only two people in the room. Yeah. There's the victim and there's the abuser. And the abuser usually doesn't talk. So the only person you can get a statement from is the victim. The victims feel shame, humiliation, embarrassment, confusion. They usually don't come forward right away.
They're traumatized.
And they're traumatized, and for that reason, there's no forensic evidence either. So it's really a she said versus no one, and unfortunately, these days, a lot of times the jury wants to see something hard evidence, some kind of forensic, some kind of proof, some kind of and these are the reasons why the district attorney Castor originally decided in 2005 that he didn't feel he can get a prosecution. Remember, it's a high bar. You have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is very difficult. And you've got to get a unanimous decision. In a civil case, you don't. You just need to prove it more likely than not. And in California, at least, you have to get 9 out of 12 jurors. So it's a much easier standard, and that's the reason why he said you have a better chance in a civil case.
How damaging.
That's why civil cases are so important.
Right. Well, and we'll talk civil in a second again. How damaging is this being thrown out and reversed, the conviction being reversed? How damaging is it for folks in the space, in the work that you do, in terms of trying to get convictions, and even for the advocates who are trying to get survivors to speak up and speak out and acknowledge that this has happened to them?
You know, it's damaging in the sense that we know he's going free. You know, thankfully he did spend some time in prison, and I'm sure his legal team's going to be addressing that in short order. However, it's really important that the procedures that we have are fair for everyone. Because if they're not fair for everyone, then we don't really have a legitimate legal system, right? And unfortunately, sometimes there are errors that work in ways that are unjust. He should not be walking free. I think everyone agrees with that. But that's the way our system works. It has to be fair for the defendants and the people who are victimized.
So for these victims, the accusers, these brave women that have come forward to speak their truth, I remember we covered this. I covered it extensively at the time. This verdict represented a dose of justice, a measure of justice for them, right? Are there any legal options available to them now? Or is civil action, is that possible?
So this only applies to Andrea Constant's case.
Okay.
It doesn't apply to other victims of Mr. Cosby if they're out there, right? And they still can move forward with civil cases or criminal cases. It also didn't apply to Andrea Constant's civil case. She did successfully prosecute the civil case. And you know, in my opinion, that guilty verdict is going to be there forever. Everyone knows that he stood trial. Everyone knows that the jury found him guilty. And you know, the facts of what he did and what he admitted to doing. He admitted to giving women quaaludes and then engaging in sexual activity with them. That's the definition of removal of consent, right? Yeah. He admitted to giving Andrea Constant what he called Benadryl. There's a question as to whether it was really Benadryl, right, before engaging in sexual contact with her, which he earlier denied. So I think, in my opinion, these facts are pretty clear, that I at least know what happened, and I think a lot of the public does.
Vince Finaldi is a partner at Manley, Stewart & Finaldi Law Firm. He was generous with his time today. Thank you for the work you do and for being here.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You as well. All right, Maria.